You guys, what is going on? I wanted to make a video kind of talking about what motivates me and what can motivate you, and just kind of why it's important to have continuing sources of motivation. So I was recording this prior in 4K, had a 10-minute limit. I kept going a little bit over, which is weird because I don't have like a script for this, but so now I'm doing 1080p. If it's too, if the quality is terrible, I guess I'll switch back. But for this specific video, I need it to be a little bit longer. So basically, I'm just going to talk briefly about what motivated me initially and what continues to motivate me, and just kind of some things that you can learn from that to kind of help you pursue what you're trying to do. So for me, I'm just going to talk specifically about lifting, and this applies to a lot of other things, but I just kind of thought that some of these things that apply to this could apply to really anything. So maybe you'd want to hear about them, maybe not. But so initially, when I started lifting, my pure motivation was to get better at sports, because I was in sports in high school, didn't do them in college. But once I stopped playing, it was like, all right, well, why am I going to continue to lift? And for me, I was a kinesiology major, so that's human movement. And it was kind of hypocritical to not exercise if I was a kin major. So I continued to do it pretty much for that one reason. Didn't last long. That's a really just not strong motivating factor. So I kind of stopped, and I was very busy at the time. Probably could have squeezed it in, but I think that was also a pretty valid excuse. So for those of you who have really, busy periods of your life, hopefully they're temporary. If they're not temporary, you should probably, figure that out before you try and pursue any passions. But if you have time and you're just looking for motivation, this is kind of what it's more about. Not making time for what you want to do. But anyway, so basically in college, I had a couple times where I tried to work out, because that's what I had done my previous years, but didn't stick to it. Wasn't able to get motivated, which is weird because I was so strongly motivated when I was younger, and I just kind of, there's a variety of reasons, which is one, my motivation sources just weren't as strong, and two, I was seeing diminishing returns, right? So when you're initially starting to do anything novel, you're going to, your growth rate is going to be accelerated, because, you have this, ability to advance something that you don't know anything about. This applies to lifting. You gain pretty much, like, if you're going to gain like 100 pounds, which is a lot, and you wouldn't, but if you're going to gain 100 pounds of muscle over your career of lifting, you could gain like 50 pounds of it or whatever, like, a good amount of it in the first year. And then the second year, maybe you gain like 25, and then it's just kind of like Half-Life in a way. I don't think it's like a hard rule, and it depends on how you train and everything, but that's kind of something to think about. So the law of diminishing returns, that's how it applies to lifting. It applies to everything else. Well, pretty much everything else. I mean, I don't know what it wouldn't apply to, but it's a law, even if it's not. I don't know. Anyway, so with that, it's like, all right, well, this single thing that motivated you to start, maybe you were fat and you wanted to lose weight, and now you're skinny. Now what do you do? Or how do you, now you're already skinny, maintaining this, you're not looking any better when you continue just keeping what you already have. Maybe you were trying to gain weight, gain muscle. You got really big really fast, and now it's like, well, now I'm lifting just to maintain this look. Whereas before, I was getting more attractive, more muscular every day or every month or whatever. It's a law of diminishing returns. This applies to, if you're learning how to do a certain skill, and you're getting better at guitar, and at first you can't play guitar at all, but then you start, and now you're able to play these chords, and now it takes so much longer to get increasingly good at it, and you're like, why am I going to continue to do this? So I think multiple motivating factors and strong, intrinsically valued ones, or intrinsically motivating ones, that kind of stick with the values that you have, that can continue to motivate you throughout your life, are important. Not just, I want to look better for summer 2019 or whatever. It's got to be something that's lifelong, right? And so I think that's important. So for me, it was, okay, doing sports, that kind of stopped. I'm in this major, that kind of stopped. So I was like, all right, well, what's going to motivate me now? And I guess I was trying to get back into it for mental health. Is kind of something that I learned while I was working on my kin major was that, the mental health aspect is something, hey, maybe I don't care about how I look that much physically. Or maybe, it's just not that important because it doesn't affect one way or another. That's how it was for me personally. I kind of just stayed in this range, whether I lifted or not. So that's not going to motivate me, but maybe improving my academic performance or, improving my mental health. And for me, it was kind of more the former. But, having increased mental ability, it can be very motivating if you're trying to finish your degree or something like that, or maybe your job is very mentally taxing or something like that, or if you're struggling with depression or something like that, or you're just kind of feeling, here we have long winters, you deal with seasonal affect or something like that. Working out can help with that, so that was kind of what motivated me initially in my first go around to kind of try again. Didn't last that long, but it did motivate me, and it still continues to motivate me. It's just that alone I don't think is strong enough to continue to do it throughout my life. And so what really kind of made me continue to do this, and what kind of made me start again, and I've been going for probably like 10 months now, was, there's this quote by Socrates, and I'm going to paraphrase it a bit, but basically it's, no man has the right to be an amateur in physical training. And basically it's like a shame if you don't test your body's limits and you die before you see what your body's capable of. And that kind of really hit me because, this is probably pretty unique to me. This might not apply to a lot of other people, but I have a pretty good, genetic, I guess my genetics are very good for building muscle, remaining fit, being athletic or whatever. All that stuff came pretty easily to me. So it's kind of like, hey, where can I take this? How far can I go? And not like, oh, I'm going to hop on steroids and see how far I can go. But, what can I do? How, I want to see this through. I want to see how far I can go. I want to push myself. I want to see physically what I'm capable of. And I thought, that applies to other people, just you should be able to see what you can do regardless of your ability. But for me, it was like, well, I have this special, genetic, I don't know how high up I am on the genetic scale, but I think I'm definitely above average at least. And I just want to see how far could I go, and obviously I'm not even close to my genetic limit, but that's something where it's like, that should motivate you to be able to, push for excellence. So that's kind of what got me started again months ago, and I actually haven't stopped. But a lot of those, months have been getting back newbie gains, and I'm kind of in the intermediate phase. Whereas like if you're an advanced lifter or you're advanced in anything, you got to have even more sources of, motivation. So the reason I'm making this now is not about the things I just said. I mean, if you can draw motivation from that, that's awesome. But I think you should look for inspiration in a lot of different things, and, kind of look at other people's experiences and see, what can I gain from this? So there are the things that I mentioned. And then yesterday I had the day off, so I watched all these movies. And I wasn't like looking for motivation. It just all kind of came to me, and I was kind of open to it. The first movie I watched, which I had already seen, is The Founder, which is on Netflix. It's about McDonald's, and kind of the main character in that. He's kind of like a villain in a way, but he's also the main character, so, take that with a grain of salt. But basically he talks about persistence being the most important thing in success. And he just kind of discusses, hey, if you are a genius or, if you have a lot of talent, there's a ton of people who have these qualities, but they don't actually succeed because they don't have persistence. And so there's two sides to that. If you're somebody like me who has, maybe this natural talent, but you don't see it through, it's pretty sad. And I didn't want to be somebody like that. So that kind of motivated me. But for anybody else who doesn't fall into that, but, there's the other side of it, whereas persistence, whether you have the talent or not, whether you have the genetics or not, if I have great genetics but I don't push myself, and you have terrible genetics but you are persistent, you continue to lift, you're going to have, a better, more strength, more size, whatever you're going for, better aesthetics if you work at it. And that, again, that specifically applies to, lifting. But in the movie, he's talking about, gaining wealth, having this franchise, super successful franchise, serving billions of people, and yada yada. What motivated him was, I guess, money, status, whatever it may be. But persistence is really what, he saw as the key. And I think that's super important. I've heard that a lot of times over the last several months, and it just keeps getting hammered home that, consistency, persistence, endurance, all these things are really what, anybody can get successful by, hitting the lottery and getting this, getting the genetic lottery, or, maybe you literally hit the lottery, whatever it may be, you can get success. Maybe you invested in this thing and it just took off, but it was kind of luck. But the people who consistently invest and stay in the stock market over 30 years, they're going to have success. You know what I mean? It might not be as successful as the guy who got super lucky, but the guy who spends 30 years is going to have a better chance than the guy who spends 3 years. And that's just how it generally works. And so I think that's super important. And I think that is one of the things where it's like, when it gets hard, that's really when you kind of learn, are you going to stick with this? Is this, so what is going to motivate you to have that endurance? What's going to motivate you to have that persistence? So that's kind of a key, but maybe not as much of a motivating thing. And then I watched, Good Will Hunting. So this is a little bit more of a, if you have this talent, but basically it's that in the movie, if you haven't seen it, basically the guy has, superior mental abilities, and he's able to kind of learn from other people who, wish that they had that ability, or maybe they had that ability, they didn't utilize it to their full potential or whatever. And basically he kind of got motivated to do something for himself. Even though he knew he had this, he was kind of content with kind of chilling and living his life. And that's kind of something with me. I might have certain gifts and certain things, and I'm not saying that I have like crazy, anything like he has in the movie, but I've always just been kind of content. I just want to be a normal person. I just want to live this normal life. But is that really going to motivate you to have the life that you want? Are you really going to be able to stick with that forever? Are you going to wish that you kind of, didn't have that regret going forward? And so, it depends. You got to balance it out, happiness and success, and how you want to deal with that. But just another thing to think about, for the people who don't have your ability to kind of get motivated by that, to maybe try and do something because other people can't and you don't want to waste your opportunity, or maybe you don't have the opportunity, but other people, it motivates you to be like, hey, this guy is not doing anything. Maybe I can take his place if I work hard or whatever. So that's where you draw motivation from that. That's awesome. And then finally, the last video I watched yesterday, and I swear I did not plan any of this, but just being open-minded and having different ways to, seek motivation for different things. I was watching Free Solo on Hulu. And basically he climbs for, his own reasons. But he wants to pursue excellence. It's kind of the main thing, is like, that's one of his motivating things, is that, people are like, why are you climbing without a rope? Like, what is it, the thrill or whatever? But he just kind of wanted to be like, you have to be perfect to do this. And, you can't make mistakes. If you make a mistake, you die, and you have to be perfect. And I was kind of taught to be perfect and try and, pursue this excellence. This is him saying this, not me, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's super, that can be a motivating thing as well. And he says, people who are happy, if they're content, just kind of living their life, being happy, being comfortable, nothing great comes from that. And I think that's something where it's like, hey, maybe you're a little bit happier, living your life and not doing anything. But you have to, you have to achieve something in life, and maybe you don't have to, maybe, you don't want to be motivated or anything like that, but you have to find the balance. You want to be able to, pursue excellence for the sake of doing it. And maybe it doesn't bring, maybe it's not this hedonistic way of the most pleasure for everybody, but if that's something, that can make you feel successful and, can be something in your life, that allows you to, be motivated to do other things, everybody has to find that balance for themselves. But honestly, I just think having an open-minded, having different things that can motivate you is super important. And I just kind of want to share that because as you continue to progress, it's just going to get harder, and you're going to need more source of motivation. If you want to achieve something spectacular, not just be normal, you're going to have to find super strong motivating sources. So basically, I just want to share those. And if I continue to get more motivating sources, I guess I'll share them with you. But for me, that kind of gave me this extra boost to get excited about this again. It kind of really, as opposed to just being, oh, this is getting hard, to really just be like, hey, it's like it's like your second wind, I guess. And, maybe third, fourth, fifth, however long it goes. But just kind of got excited about those things, helping me feel a little bit more motivated as I progress. And hopefully somebody can get something out of this. If not, well, I don't know. But I will keep you updated on, what I'm doing and things that motivate me and whatever else. And I'll talk to you soon.